Welcome to the Wake Up Dad Show. This is episode number 17.
And if you ever Googled bacterial meningitis in a 1-month-old, there's not a lot of good news. And so it was pretty scary. It was I was freaking out. I still get lump in my throat thinking about it.
Are you confused and overwhelmed about your role in all the craziness that is being a dad? Are you struggling to create the life you hope for? Are you looking for other dads to share your struggles and your triumphs? Or do you just need help waking up in the morning? Join your host, Dr. Scott Vatcher, as he explores the amazing and sometimes crazy world of being a dad. This is the Wake Up Dad Show.
Hey Dad, and welcome to another episode of the Wake Up Dad Show. This show is dedicated to you, the dad who wants more success, time, health, fitness, connection, passion, and all-around awesomeness. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Vatcher, and on today's episode, I've got a good friend of mine. His name is Dr. Brian Peterson. Brian is a chiropractor, a qualified primal health coach, which I'm totally interested to find out more about that, a podcast host, Tough Mudder junkie, basketballer, and most importantly, a husband and father to two beautiful girls, aged 6 and 15. Dr. Brian's been a chiropractor for 18 years. He has a unique perspective on health and lifestyle because he's personally had to quit virtually every vice known to man at one stage or another, which we might get into as well. He enjoys the outdoors, hiking, chasing his two daughters around, a once-a-month poker with the boys night. I love doing poker with the boys. It's just awesome. And Wednesday night, run around the basketball court and an occasional surf. He enjoys running boot camps, training sessions, equipping men and women to conquer their goals, such as obstacle course races like Tough Mudder, which I have not done yet and I totally want to do.
Cool, man. Let's do it.
Yeah. Dr. Brian's a continuous learner, and with the guidance of many great leaders, speakers, authors, and researchers, is always striving to better himself. He's currently working on creating programs that will help busy parents get back to their true health potential. And he is the podcast host of a great podcast called Unleash Your Genius. So check that out at unleashyourgenius.com or on iTunes as well. So, Dr. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Man, it's exciting to be here.
That's fantastic. So people got an idea of, who you are and what you do. You sound like a busy guy like I am through your bio there. But, tell us your story about becoming the dad that you are today.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Scott. I think I had a pretty, it was atypical start to dadhood because I started out as a stepdad, which is probably pretty common these days. But it's not something that you can ever prepare for, I don't think. And so, I met this beautiful woman, and we were dating, and I met this beautiful 5-year-old bundle of energy, and I didn't even realize at the time that she would probably be one of my greatest teachers in a number of ways. And to say it was a struggle in the beginning, I also had a stepdad come in a little bit older, but I knew what it was like, and for a 5-year-old to see me coming in here and, not trying to take the place of her dad, but I'm sure that the only thing she would really want is for, her mom and dad to get back together, and here's this guy. So it's not a great place to start a relationship with, but we did really well. And I think, for 80, probably 90% of the time, it was a great start. But, there was that 10% where when I was, when I knew that she was going to be there for our week, like my blood pressure would raise, and I would, because she would, she was a bit cheeky. And, I would laugh with my wife about it now that, how crazy this little cute 5-year-old would actually drive me so crazy, and it got, and it was a great learning. We would laugh about it, but, it was a great learning experience for me because I learned a great deal about relationships, and I learned how the things that, probably drove me crazy about Kiara, or I'll call her the sorry, I'll call it a sports fan. The greatest lessons I learned from her is that we were so similar that those similarities are the traits that probably drove me crazy, right? And then I had to learn how to, cope and adapt with that kind of relationship. And I think the other thing that I learned is that I had to learn how to just love without worrying that she was going to reject me, because I knew that I wasn't going to take the place of her father. And it was, at the time it was scary, because you know that you're going to love someone and they could reject you. And so I just had to learn to step into that role. It took me some growing up to do, but it was a great lesson. And, we have a beautiful, fantastic relationship now, but I learned so many lessons from her. And that was, that was my initial step into dadhood. My second daughter comes along, and so we were living in my wife's parents' place at the time, and because we were having a house built. And one night, she was a month old, and she was just really restless, and she was crying. She had this weird cry. So we checked her temperature, and it was pretty high. It was like 37, 38, and then it would go back down. It would get up to 39, come back down. It was bouncing around all night. So the morning came, I went to work, and Yvette took the littlest one to the GP. And then I get a phone call that the GPs told us to go down to take her down to the Mater Hospital. So take her down there, and I'm still at work. And then I get another call an hour later, and my wife is telling me that our daughter has bacterial meningitis. And so, I wasn't really that clued up onto what it was, so I Googled it. And if you ever Googled bacterial meningitis in a 1-month-old, there's not a lot of good news. And so it was, it was pretty scary. It was a very, I was freaking out. I still get lump in my throat thinking about it. I left the clinic, went down to the hospital. Huge lessons there. I saw them do a spinal tap to check her cerebral spinal fluid. An amazing emergency doctor. I learned a lot about focus when I watched him. And so, she was diagnosed with bacterial meningitis. And so for the next 6 weeks, we were living at the hospital and living day by day. And, luckily 6 weeks later, everything came out okay. She has no neurological problems. She's bright, healthy, happy, smart, feisty, intelligent 6-year-old. But it was a pretty scary start for her life.
Wow, Brian, that's an amazing story. Thanks for sharing. That must have been such a challenge for you and your family, and I'm really glad it obviously ended up the way that it did. So let's head back to your first daughter. You mentioned in the pre-chat that she was pivotal in you making some of the changes.
She was pivotal. Sports fan was pivotal in changing our lifestyles. I think I mentioned that I've had to quit pretty much every vice known to man. For a lot of the years, we didn't have we tried to eat healthy. Like healthy for us would be low-fat yogurt, whole grain. Pasta, stuff like that, reduced sugars, but we still would, McDonald's and sodas every once in a while. And sports fan was having a little bit of trouble in school. She wasn't getting very good grades. She wasn't getting along with people very well, which was really stressful as well. She didn't have many friends. And so we tried a few different things. And finally I came across something about the primal diet, paleo diet, Mark Sisson and the primal blueprint. I was reading up on that, and it started to make sense. So we just did it. We changed. What he suggests, what we do is go to our pantry and check out all the bad foods that he lists. And just start eating whole foods. And so that's what we did. And within 2 weeks, we had 2 of sports fans' teachers come up to us and say, whatever you guys are doing, don't stop. It's working. And that's when it hit me that, wow, lifestyle and diet and nutrition can really have a strong effect on somebody socially and mentally, the way that she learns. And from then on, we totally changed our lifestyle. We became very passionate about food and health and exercise, and, just continuously learning from there and trying to share, what we've learned.
Yeah, that's incredible, because I think there's so many of us out there that sort of say, oh, diet is important for your health, for things like diabetes and heart disease. But most people don't realize how brutally significant it is for you just being a better person, for example, like you say, with behavior and things like that. So I think that's a really good take-home lesson for a lot of listeners out there, for a lot of dads out there who probably, I could be wrong, but Dad, if you're listening out there, are you the one that lets the kids eat more ice cream and more rubbish than the mum? I think in general that's the case. It is with me, although, we eat very healthily as well, and my daughter eats better than I do, but if there's somebody to give treats, I'm going to be the one more so than mum, and I think that's probably the case in a lot of us. So Dad out there, if you're listening and you're having troubles with your kids, even behaviorally, have a look at that. So talk a little bit about that. Is that where you got your I mentioned it in the bio, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, that primal
Primal Health Coach.
Yeah.
Well, Mark Sisson started it. Him and Lauren Cordain, big in the paleo movement, and I think Mark learned a lot from him. He was writing books and blogs at the same time, and he created this primal blueprint, which is pretty much a way of eating whole foods like we did for millions of years, and moving our bodies in ways that are natural in movement. And so it's a whole, and, de-stressing, it's a whole natural way of looking at life and lifestyle. And at the time we were just searching for different things to help sports fan, and we came across this primal blueprint. And so, we started doing it, and we lost a ton of weight just by cleaning up our diet. And that's where, our daughter was like the canary in the coal mine, right? We saw her make these huge changes right away, and then, pretty soon we started to realize that, all of this low-fat stuff and whole grains and all this stuff really isn't doing us as much good as we thought it was. But, with our daughter, what I saw was that she didn't really know when she was being annoying, right? Like, she would have some friends, and you know how sometimes you pull each other's hair or punch or say something funny, but that switch when someone's like, okay, I've had enough, she didn't have that switch. But once we started to clear up her diet, she all of a sudden, she had that. And that is where she started making friends, and she was able to concentrate again. It was in that, just that specific thing that I noticed that really helped her become, the teenager that she is now. She great grades and excelling in whatever she puts her mind towards.
So on a practical note for the dads out there, how difficult was it to make that change as far as getting your daughter to eat those foods? Because typically, your typical diet is very preservative based and sugar laden, and just it. Let's face it. Generally, it's much more appealing to the palate, for kids. If they're on sugary stuff, it's a lot more difficult to get them off of that onto veggies and good quality foods and stuff. So how was that transition for you? Did you find any issues, and were able to overcome them in any way?
Sure. Well, we were fortunate in the start because she really came to us. Like, we knew she was struggling, and we were kind of clueless. And then she was just like, she didn't make a basketball team that she tried out for, and she was having trouble with her friends. And she came to us, and she was just like, I need some help. Please help me. And that's when we just started, and that really helped us because she was willing to try, anything. I think we did biofeedback a couple of times. We were really grasping at straws just to try some natural approaches to figuring this out. And so yeah, in the beginning, she was like, okay, if I have to eat this, I'll do this. And so, we got rid of the breads, and she was really good. We did gluten-free stuff, and added more vegetables and salads to the diet. And she was probably, I think she was 7 or 8 then. And so, yeah, she did really well with that. But then she really, really, really loved sugar. And so now that she's 15, we've never been as strict. She makes her own choices, and she knows the consequences to those. But I think we kind of, I don't think we struggle anymore. She knows that, she balances things out. She eats a big bowl of salad, and if she's going to have a treat, she has a treat, but she realizes what it's going to do to her body. And she, sometimes she says, no, I'm not going to eat that. And other times, she does. So she's still learning, but yeah, I think we had an advantage because she wanted to change. And now with the littlest one, I mean, she's just straight out like, I'm a lolly kid. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be this health and wellness expert, and that my kids are supposed to eat nothing but veggies and, do everything right. And I've got this lolly kid. She just loves lollies. So she's a bit of a struggle, but she will eat her vegetables. And, we just try and, every time, if she offers me food, I'll say, well, did it come from the earth? And if it's a piece of fruit, I'll say yes. And if it's something packaged, I'll say, oh, no, thanks. I just try and be a role model in that aspect. But, if she wants a treat every once in a while, we're not going to fight that. But yeah, early on, it is kind of tricky. There's some tricks, that, we can talk about as far as sneaking vegetables into their diet, like grinding up vegetables and creating foods that kids like. But, there's, tips and tricks to getting kids, the nutrition that we know that they should have.
Oh, there's lots of those. I don't know if it's because we were very aware, right from the get-go with our little one, but our little girl is picky, but she's picky because all she wants to do is eat raw vegetables.
Wow.
So yeah, exactly. It's not the usual. So I haven't had those struggles personally myself, but I do know a lot of dads and mums and families out there will have that struggle, especially if your kids have been raised on a mostly sugar-based diet and to transition out. So I think we'll maybe get into that in another episode. I'll have you back on the show, and we'll go deep down into that one as a special episode, maybe.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. So let's talk a little bit more about you with in your dadhood. I'll call it. I like that word, dadhood.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm making up my own vernacular here. So this show is dedicated, to dads. It's dads who've mainly fallen asleep, become unconscious about their own selves, and have lost who they are as men, as dads, as lovers, and as people. There's 5 main categories that I feel need to be addressed for us to wake up as dads and become the men who we know we can be. And those 5 P's, the first one is purpose, and that's the reason why you're here and the legacy that you want to leave behind. Second one is power, which is about reaching optimal health. Parenting, of course, about being the best version of ourselves for our kids and our partners. 4 is providing, which is taking care of our families and being a role model. And 5 is passion in our relationships and our life. If you had to pick one of those 5 P's as the one that you've had a significant struggle with in the past, or maybe are struggling with now, and a lesson that you may learn or may have learned from that to share with our dads out there, does anything jump out at you?
Well, I'm looking at purpose. I think purpose, I didn't have a lot of purpose in the beginning when I first started Dadhood. And so that led to, I don't know, unconscious eating, I guess, unconscious, pretty much everything. I didn't think about what would be good for my daughter, or, what I should do. So my purpose now is very strong to be able to set a good example for my daughters to, how health should be and how they should look after themselves. And I also want to leave a legacy of some positive things behind, so that my kids can be proud of my work. So I think purpose was a good one, because before I had a purpose, I was pretty much, what did you call it? A unconscious dad?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I woke up, right? I woke up and I realized that my children's health and my health is pretty much the most important thing. That comes first, and then jobs, relationships, everything else.
So is there anything like practical wise, like how did you wake up? You say, and one day I woke up. Was there anything in particular that occurred? Was it when well, I won't put words in your mouth. Yeah, was there anything that did happen that made that switch that might help dads out there who are listening, who are struggling to get their purpose back?
Yeah. Just realizing furthering my knowledge about the human body, and how I went, and it was 2011, February DG, I saw Dr. James Chestnut speak, and I walked away from that with a whole new paradigm. I had never heard anything like that before, and he backed it up with science, and from then on I believed that the body is made to be healthy, and that whatever I gave my kids, that was going to produce the cells in their body. I mean, I look at the human body a lot differently than I did back then. I just thought we were a body but now I see that we're a bunch of cells that are living, and that we're vitalistic, and we're always creating new cells, and our body is so intelligent. And if we just keep feeding it McDonald's and chips and junk, that that is going to come out in my kids. So I finally woke up one day and I realized that, this miracle of life that I'm responsible for needs more sustenance. It needs, we need to focus on our health. And that's where I guided my attention. Before, my attention and my purpose was probably on lowering my handicap or, getting better waves. I really didn't have a purpose, but until I realized, the significance of what we feed our kids, and what our world's going to be like if we don't get this health situation in order, the world that our kids are going to live in isn't going to be very pretty. So I think that we have a large purpose to help our community become healthy.
Yeah, there's a little story that I'll quickly tell that might make the sort of lesson or the idea a bit easier for some of the dads out there. It's like, if you've got a master builder, and he can, you give him great blueprints, and you give him, and he's been building for decades, and he's one of the best builders out there. But you give him a bunch of shoddy material, rotted out wood, broken nails, and screws with no heads and things like that. How is he going to be able to make what you want him to make? And of course, the answer to that is going to be no. And that's your body. Your body is that master builder. But if you keep giving him shoddy materials with rubbish food, he's not going to be able to create that masterpiece that is a healthy body. And so, that's just, an easy example to show that building blocks are so important. So that's a really cool point.
Yeah, nice.
So is there anything, when looking at purpose a little bit closer, is there anything that you do on a daily basis in your routine that helps you to ground yourself in that purpose, so that, cause, we all get lost. I always talk about the wagon, and, it's not about if we're going to fall off the wagon, it's about when and how quickly we can get back on. So is there anything that you do on a daily basis routine that you might be able to share with the dads out there that help you to ground yourself on a daily basis?
Well, I have a bit of a morning routine. I wake up and I focus, first, do the brush your teeth, do the toilet stuff, and then I focus on just setting intention for the day. I'll focus on some affirmations. I'll do some stuff like that. Gratitude. I'll just focus for a few minutes on the things that I'm thankful for, even just the small things, for a few minutes just helps me set my day, that I'm thankful that I have food that I'm going to provide for my kids. I'm thankful that I have a roof over my head, and just, focus on setting my intention for the day helps me focus better on how to, and then I'll go and wake up the kids. I always cook a breakfast. So I've got a cornerstone routine that I do that, cook them a hot breakfast. And I get some exercise in every morning. So just to clear my head and make sure that I'm ready for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think, this has been a common theme to come out in a lot of the interviews already so far is having some type of a morning ritual or routine that involves looking at being thankful and movement. Movement is so important for your overall health and to get stuff done. It's just that simple. Getting movement is not just about exercise and looking good with your shirt off. It's really, it has such an impact on your overall health.
I can tell, like, the day, if I didn't exercise or do a little bit beforehand, I'm just not as crisp and clear. Even if I don't want to do it, I get out there and just for 5 or 10 minutes just to get the heart pumping. It just sets my intention for the day. And I guess for my kids, I do the same thing. I think that I'm focused on their self-talk. Ever since they were young, I've always said, focus on, say something, that you're good at, focus on your strengths. Repeat that, focus before you go to bed, think of what great is going to happen tomorrow, set a positive intention. So I'm always trying to think of these positive seeds to plant in my kids' head, especially in the mornings too, wake up and, what are you looking forward to today? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's such a great idea because, our kids' heads are going to be filled with something. May as well try and fill it up with that positive stuff because there's enough negative out there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So do you have an app or a book or an audio book or a gadget or a game or an exercise routine or an author or something that you're just loving at the moment? Something to share with the dads?
When I first became, not specifically, but what I do is, as far as games, I play games with my kids. Basketball for my oldest daughter. We've got our rivalry with the court out in the front yard. So we have our games that we play on the weekends. And I've just discovered the flying fox down the road at the park with my little one. And so she loves it. She hops on the flying fox. I chuck her down there as hard as I can. And then I use it as sprints. I sprint down and I sprint back. So we kind of laugh and I get my exercise involved with that. As far as books, I got a lot of books. I'm the kind of guy that researches everything before they buy it. So before when I was dating Sport Fan's mom, I got a lot of, so you're going to be a stepdad book and, those kind of books. And I've read through all of those. But I don't think I have any apps. Do you have any apps? Is there a Dadhood app or something that I don't know about?
Not that I know of. I like all kinds of different apps. I've talked about a few on some of the other shows. It depends on what you're looking for. I think apps are going to be a much bigger and as time goes on over the next couple of months, years, and even decades. Who knows by that time? But so there's so many apps out there that I always try and ask that question to, let me know if there's anything going on that I don't know about.
I'm just struggling to get the things away from my kids, man. They're so addicted. Can I have your phone? Can I have this? And, I try and limit that screen time as much as I can. That's a tough one.
It is. It's that real balance to know that, there's the science out there telling you screen time has such a high impact on in particular young kids, but then not being too strict with that because screen time is where life is right now. I don't want my kid to be behind the times and not understand how that stuff works because it's going to be such a bigger and bigger part as time goes on. But yeah, it's that real balance between the two.
Yeah, it's hard.
It is. So I'm going to put you in front of a room of 1,000 eager dads, and you've got 2 minutes to give them your greatest wake up dad message, what would that message be?
Wow. My message would be to live in the moment. If you are a busy dad, if you're an entrepreneur dad, or if you're a dad that's got a lot going on, it becomes very easy to live in the future. At least, I mean, for me, I'm always thinking about business and what I have to do, and the lists and the tasks, and it's stuff that I love to do, but it can take up so much time that I forget to actually live in the moment. And when I feel the guiltiest is when I'm with my kids. I've got that Saturday morning, we're hanging out, and all of a sudden I find myself thinking about, what am I supposed to do with this website? Or, I got an interview coming up in 2 days. What are we going to talk about? And so really concentrating, focusing on living in the moment, and appreciating every moment. I keep reminding myself that this is the last day that these kids are going to be this age. And so just to appreciate the moment. And the way that I do that is, once I notice that I'm drifting, I just start focusing on my breath. I just take a deep breath in and just focus on my breathing, look at my child, look at my kids, and then reconnect and get back into whatever activities that we're doing. So that's probably my biggest struggle and my biggest focus. And if I could leave advice with all of those dads out there, focus and live in the moment.
It's such a good message, and it's simple, but it's not easy. It's just about being aware about it. So time flies. We're coming up to the end here. I know I'll put it in the show notes page, but how can people get in touch with you?
Facebook. Unleashyourgenius.com is the website, and then I have a Facebook that is the same, and Twitter at Dr. Brian Peterson. But you can get me on the unleashyourgenius.com. Pretty good website. And let's connect there.
That's awesome, guys. Go and connect there. Subscribe and download to that podcast, which has been a great one so far. Well, Dad, that's it for another episode. Dr. Scott signing off here. And remember, dads, let's keep becoming better dads together.
Do you want to know more about the Wake Up Dad movement? Go to www.thewakeupdadshow.com to download any and all past issues of the show, claim your free gift, or to directly ask Dr. Scott any questions you have. Continue the conversation on the Facebook group Wake Up Dad. Share this podcast with other dads on iTunes or Google Play. Make sure to subscribe to the show and give us a rating so we can reach more dads. And dads, one last thing. Wake up!